Education is a very antagonistic environment. So, why do I say that? Welcome to Echo Chamber. This is Series 2, Part 1 Educational Conditions. Stay tuned to hear more about educational conditions and what you can do about it. I will be using some concepts such as educational conditions, dialectical tensions, stakeholders, and educational constellation. Don't worry about the terms, they will be explained as we go along. This term, what do I mean by educational conditions? I mean the environments with which students study in, the conditions that they learn in, whether they feel good, whether they think clearly, whether they can access resources, whether they can get onto the courses that they want, and the reasons they enter education in the first place. Pressures determine to some degree the educational conditions that students exist in. So, the economic, the government, state of the country, the access to education, the desire to contribute something to society, or the desire to benefit from something, such as status, wealth. All these pressures are in full play in education, and we can call this dialectical tension. What is that? It's a very complex term. You can say that dialectical tension is conflict, opposition, resistance, antagonism between what humans want, their agency, their desires, their aspirations, their autonomy, and the structures placed on them. So, the economy, social status, cultural practices, and other pressures. So these elements, which are always in competition, are dynamic. When students are in education, they experience this dialectic tension. All students experience this dialectical tension. However, understanding the educational experiences of students helps us understand how these dialectical tensions contribute to their learning experiences and contributes to their learning engagements and contributes to whether they succeed or do not succeed, whether they feel part of an educational system or not, whether they feel its benefactor or whether they feel disadvantaged. Students, like every other member, such as educators, employers, assessors, policymakers, governments, and families, have a stake in the outcomes of their education. They are all stakeholders of the educational community, which is made up of the nursery, primary, secondary, tertiary educational industries. I have in front of you examples of educational constellation, which is made up of a series of communities. So in the first example, we have a preschool community, and this is made up of different various forms of preschool. So this could be formal schooling, which is private, where families pay for it, or it could be government run, which once again is paid through tax, or it could be family, so children are dropped off with family members, aunties, grandparents, etc., friends, or any other informal kind of preschool service. And that community can often complement primary education because it precedes it and it offers, in some cases, some foundational knowledge that primary school educators may expect. So once again, in this primary education community, you have government schools, you have private schools, you have homeschooling, you could have institutional schooling, you could have hospitalized schooling, you could have various forms of schooling that all provide primary education. And when you get old enough and you, in theory, pass primary education, then you move into secondary education. And as you can see, most secondary education is provided in secondary schools, and they could be various forms of secondary education. Once again, government run, private education, religious education, military education, institutional education, educational as in some kind of facility, And you can get secondary education from various forms, including homeschooling, private tutelage, and so forth. And once you get out of that level, those communities, you can then also gain your tertiary education from university or from employers through some training, graduate training scheme or apprenticeship, through some kind of CPD, continued professional development, or you can get it through college, through long distance learning. You can get it once again through self-teaching. And so this just shows how you can get tertiary education from various communities that all make up the constellation of education. So each community is made up of loads and loads and loads of organizations and institutions that offer education, and together they all form a galaxy, a constellation of education that can be formal, informal, non-formal, and so forth. But it's what the theorists of social theory deem educational constellation is. All of these form a constellation, an educational constellation, and all of them have dialectical tensions. How they learn, what they learn, why they should learn, to what degree they feel that they benefit, to what degree they actually benefit. And this tension in the present is also expressed futureward, the potential growth. So there's a tension between what students do now in this space, in this educational space, and what they hope to obtain in the future. There's a tension here with what is available for them, with how they can achieve that, and with if they will actually achieve that. These are the various environments, conditions that students are finding themselves in. And it is students from the most marginalized communities that find it hard to manage and navigate these conditions. Why? Because they lack the historical capital, the experience, the know-how on how to manage and balance these situations, on how to get through to the next level, and how to maximize particular opportunities or bad hands. So part 2 is going to explore how these pressures need to be managed from the get. So stay tuned. Please subscribe, share, like, and comment. Thank you.